Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan battle video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the battle or Supreme Fusion stage of the Mortal Will and Divine Wrath or Divine Wrath and Mortal Will event in DBZ Dokkan battle. Now this stage is pretty tough, but there is a secret technique. All you have to do is simply lower the attack of Vegito and you have a much easier time. Now in this run I'll be using items. I will also do a no item run as well. It's already filmed, so yes, it is possible. The big thing is always surviving the first turn, and because of this I highly suggest you bring in Nurse Chi-Chi. Nurse Chi-Chi is better than a Ghost Usher or similar item in this situation, because a Nurse Chi-Chi in theory essentially allows you to get hit whilst still surviving. And this is important, especially if you're running units like Tex Masu, especially when you're running units that want to be hit. Using a Nurse Chi-Chi facilitates that a lot more and allows you to still keep their passives rolling effectively, more so than just using a Ghost Usher and just kind of rolling with it. So it's very important. Outside of that, taking a look at all things considered, I think, barring the choice of items, it's important to understand how lowering attack works. So we have a couple units that have lowering attack in their passives. This will only be prevalent during one turn, whereas when we have lowering attack on a super attack, this applies over a 2-turn period. So for example, essentially, when you look at the functionality of the team, I think for me, you want to bring units that do both, because it all starts to kind of stack up. When you've got in-turn passives reducing attack and defense, and you've got super attacks that are reducing attack and defense over 2 turns, it then all starts to kind of really sit nicely. And even then you could still take quite a fair chunk of damage. So it's not like you can just bring attack lowering units and call it a day. You actually need to bring attack lowering units that are really good, or at least solid. And in this regard, we'll kind of go through the team. So there's a couple key core units, I think, not to winning. I mean, you can bring plenty of units to win. But for this run, there's a couple units that I specifically like quite a lot. So one of them is AGL Cooler that you're seeing right now. AGL Metal Cooler, 2 things are really great about him. He greatly lowers attack and defense on his super attack, which is awesome. He also has a bunch of bonuses against Pure Saiyans, which is great. He provides healing, which is very helpful. And he also has type advantage, which is really helpful when you're facing such a strong unit. The other unit that I really like is the Int Piccolo. I think Int Piccolo is great, and again, for 2 reasons. So Int Piccolo really brings a good foundation. When he's in the first slot, he reduces enemy attack and defense by 30%. So he immediately provides a really solid debuff to Vegito once we get going. It's important to understand that that buff only applies once the Piccolo unit attacks, and so we really need to make sure he attacks to apply that buff in the first slot. Tech Zamasu's also an incredibly good choice, again because of a lot of reasons, but the big reason being the fact that he debuffs on his 18 key, and alongside that as well we have the Rose, the Strength Rose, also being an incredibly solid unit. So Strength Rose does this really cool thing where he debuffs superclass enemies, and you can really see that starting to come into shape here, because that debuff against superclass enemies not only is really quite solid, but it actually really helps alongside conjunctively to Piccolo's. Really starts to add up, because together they're providing a huge debuff to the opposition. Whenever Piccolo and Goku Rose are on a turn, the flat turn debuff is 60%, not inclusive of the lowering attack, etc. that we do have. And you can see still that we take a fair chunk of damage. Remember, Piccolo's 30% is not active until he attacks. So that's important to measure when we're kind of recording how much damage he took there. Turles, AGL Turles, also a great choice for 2 reasons. One, you can finally use his full passive, that 20% attack and defense debuff, his type advantage, and his 50% extreme class boost to defense is all really good here, and so I really like AGL Turles. I think he brings a really good chunk to the table. So that's kind of talking about these side picks. Obviously, we have a very strong core as well, favoring AGL type units, avoiding physical units, and just in general bringing a really strong team. And that's not to say that you can't bring physical type units. It's very important to understand that there are plenty of options with which you can use to facilitate a lot of traction here. For me, it's just one of those things where you just need to decide at what point you're looking at using certain units. For me, generally speaking, if a unit can have around 200k defense and lower attack, they should be good here. If they take a super attack, they will be in a bit of trouble. Vegito still hits pretty hard, but your core component unit should be fine. You see, we are using items here. Like I said, a mouse is a great alternative if you don't have a Whis or you want to use something different. It doesn't function exactly the same as a Whis because it's not negating the key modifier effects, but what it does do is it helps to supplement what you already choose to do. So the fact that you are choosing to run your attack debuffing lineup, and that you're kind of functioning with this principle of really lowering the unit's attack, to throw in the abilities of Zamasu, I think, and all of these other attack lowering sources becomes really good. Obviously, we don't use the infinite fusion Zamasu, and the reason I'm not using infinite Zamasu is because although we would get a defensive buff for everyone else, he doesn't actually reduce the opposition's damage that they do, and he also increases our damage, but the big thing is he doesn't really provide any form of lowering attack. He also doesn't lower attack on his 12 or 18 key, so making him fuse Zamasu actually removes their source of attack lowering, which in the long run is not something that we want to facilitate. Ultimately, it's just something that we're not, doesn't really aid our cause, to cut a long story short. With that being said, the team runs great. I personally find it to be awesome. And in general, this is a good strategy. Obviously, lowering his attack is really, really solid. And I find that, everything works out or tends to work out really well. So for me, overall, I'm quite happy with how everything played out here. Of course, it's just going to depend on your team. Try and aim for that 200k mark. Trying to aim for greatly lowering attack is awesome. Lowering attack is good. Evasion also helps here. But and that's that. I just skipped the giant form because they do sometimes take a while and you don't do a lot of damage there. But generally this team does very well. Like I said, you are in a little bit of a high risk situation the first turn, but then from there you tend to be pretty strong. And I think that's just how this event goes. Once you can start to round out and complement the passive attack reductions with the super attack reductions, you start to really bring Vegito down to an acceptable level, and I think that's very important to kind of facilitate. So overall, really good. I think everything ran smoothly. Don't think there was anything too crazy that we've missed out, and I think you should have a decent time. If you are struggling, you can give me a shout. My build for the item run is completely different to this one. So hopefully that gives you guys 2 team builds to run with. But in general, just pretty good stuff. But that's going to be it from me. I think that's everything you need to know. And just give me a shout if you have any other queries. But otherwise, that's going to be it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Bye.